The silence in the house hit me like a slap. I stopped at the doorway, the keychain trembling in my hand, my heart pounding with nervous anticipation. I had come home an hour earlier than planned, too impatient to wait any longer. After all, it had been 3 years since we last took a family trip together. "Mom, Dad," I called out, letting my suitcase drop to the floor with a heavy thud. No one answered. I walked through the living room and noticed the curtains were tightly drawn. A strange smell lingered in the air. It wasn't the familiar mix of coffee and my mother's perfume, it was something else, almost like disinfectant. "Ethan?" I called, running up the stairs, 2 steps at a time. My brother had been bedridden for a year since the accident. The doctor said the chances of recovery were almost zero. Persistent vegetative state. Those were the exact words. I still visited him every week, talking, reading to him, believing that somewhere in his mind he could still hear me. The door to his room was slightly open. I craned my neck to look inside. The bed was empty. Sheets rumpled. My stomach tightened. "Where is everyone?" I muttered, running back downstairs. Just then, my phone rang. My mother's name appeared on the screen. I answered right away, relieved. "Mom, I'm so scared. I'm home, but the house is empty." "Where is everyone?" The video call connected automatically. What I saw made me freeze. My mother Lydia was wearing a bright pink sun hat and designer sunglasses, forcing a smile. Behind her was the pool of a luxury resort in Florida, palm trees swaying in the wind, soft music playing. "Sweetheart, good, you're there," she said in a tone so casual it chilled me. "Take care of your brother, the invalid." The camera swung abruptly, revealing my younger sister, Rebecca, lounging on a sun chair in a bikini that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She tilted her chin toward me, voice dripping with disdain. "Hey, Gus," she said without even taking off her glasses. Behind her, my father Robert appeared, holding a cocktail with a tiny paper umbrella. He stepped closer to the camera, his expression the same as always, stern, unyielding. "Forgot to tell you," he said lightly. "This trip is just for us. Your brother is your responsibility now." The world spun around me. The words came out of his mouth, but my mind couldn't process them. "And besides," he continued, taking a sip of his drink, "we might not come back. We're looking at a house here and plan to sell this one. Just take him to your place and care for him." "But, Dad, I don't understand." I tried to say, but the call ended. The screen went black. I stood frozen, gripping my phone like it was about to explode. They had gone on vacation without telling me, left Ethan behind, and now wanted me to take care of him when I could barely take care of myself. I was 29, working as a receptionist at a clinic, sharing a small apartment with a roommate. My salary barely covered my bills. How could I possibly care for someone in a coma? But that was how my family always worked. Whenever there was a problem, I was the one who had to sacrifice. The middle child, the one who never complained, who always found a way to make things work. When Rebecca wanted to take dance lessons, I worked summer jobs to help pay. When Dad lost his job, I gave him all my savings. When Ethan had his accident, I stayed at the hospital for the first 48 hours straight. And now, again. My legs trembled as I sank onto the sofa, trying to breathe. The silence in the house felt heavy, like a wet blanket draped over my shoulders. Then I realized something was really wrong. The house wasn't just empty, it had been cleared out. Several potted plants were gone. The living room TV was missing. Even the paintings on the wall had disappeared. I walked slowly, like through a minefield. Opened. The fridge empty, except for half a bottle of water. They hadn't just gone on vacation. They had moved out. I ran to my parents' room. The closet was bare, drawers wiped clean. Rebecca's room too, as if no one had ever lived there. "Oh my God," I whispered, leaning against the wall. "They really abandoned me." Then I heard footsteps downstairs. My blood turned cold. Ethan was supposed to be in a coma, he couldn't walk. So, who was down there? The footsteps were slow, deliberate, careful. I descended 1 step at a time, heart pounding, the wooden floor creaking beneath me. At the bottom of the stairs, I saw him, Ethan. Standing tall, alert, clean clothes, neatly combed hair. He stood in the middle of the living room, looking at me with an unreadable expression. I thought I was hallucinating. After the shock, maybe I'd lost my mind. A man who had been in a coma for a year now standing there, staring at me like nothing had happened. But how? I stammered. He smiled the same smile I hadn't seen in a year, unchanged. Surprised, sis? His voice was hoarse but steady. The bedridden one's on his feet again, and I have a plan. Are you in? I didn't know if I was dreaming or awake. But that look in his eyes, it was terrifyingly real. I answered instantly, without hesitation. Of course I am. Because if there was one thing I'd always believed about this family, it was that Ethan was the only one who truly cared about me. If he was awake, if he had a plan, then maybe everything was about to change. He stepped closer, and for the first time since I'd entered that empty house, I didn't feel lost anymore. Sit down, Augusta, he said, pointing to the sofa. I've got a lot to tell you. I sat, still dazed, watching him move around the room with ease. He pulled up a chair across from me, as if we were just two siblings having a normal conversation. How did you wake up? I asked, my voice trembling. You were in a coma for a year. Exactly 362 days, he replied, folding his hands. I swallowed hard. There was something different in his eyes, deeper, colder, calculating. The doctors said you'd never wake up. I came every week, talked to you. I know. You heard everything? All of it. He had heard it all the times. I complained, cried, said I was lonely. When did you wake up? I asked. He stood and began pacing, his steps firm, nothing like someone who'd been bedridden. 6 months, he said, stopping by the window. 6 months? You've been awake for 6 months and didn't tell anyone? Yeah. Only I knew. And now you. But why? Why didn't you tell anyone? The doctors. Our parents. Ethan turned toward me, and finally, I saw a flicker of cold anger in his eyes. Because 3 days after I woke up, he said, I overheard a very interesting conversation. He sat down again, leaning forward slightly, as if about to share a secret. It was a Tuesday. Remember? You came on Monday and read that essay book I like? The next day, our beloved family came to visit. My heart tightened. Something in his voice told me I wasn't going to like what I was about to hear. They thought I couldn't hear, Ethan continued. They stood right next to my bed, talking like I was just a piece of furniture. What did they say? I asked. Ethan walked over to a half-open drawer I hadn't noticed before. He pulled out a small recorder. I think you should hear it for yourself. He pressed play. My mother's voice filled the room. Robert, we need to talk about Ethan. The doctor said there's no hope left. My father's voice followed. I know, Lydia, but so what? He's got a bank account with nearly $2 million just sitting there. This house is in his name since Grandma died, while we're drowning in debt. My stomach twisted. It was, undeniably, their voices. What do you mean? My father asked. I mean, we should find a way to access what should have been ours anyway. It's not like he can use it. Rebecca's voice chimed in, colder than ever. Mom's right. Besides, Augusta's already taking care of him for free. Transfer guardianship to her and we're rid of the burden. Good idea, sweetheart. Meanwhile, we'll figure out how to get into the account. What about the power of attorney he signed before the accident? Ethan stopped the recording. The silence that followed was so heavy it felt like my chest was being crushed. There's more, he said calmly, in a tone that sent chills down my spine. A lot more. I struggled to process what I had just heard. My parents and sister had talked about Ethan like he was a source of money. Did they do the same to me? I whispered. What do you mean? He asked. Today they left me here, said you were my responsibility. I told him everything from the moment I entered the house to the video call. They sold the house, Ethan. They're at some resort now and said they're not coming back. Ethan nodded, as if he had anticipated it. I knew they would do that, so I prepared. Prepared? How? For 6 months, while they thought I was in a persistent vegetative state, I was very busy. He smiled, not a happy smile, but the smile of someone who had found a way to strike back. I discovered many interesting things. He pulled a thick file from the cabinet. First, they started touching my account, transferring small amounts 500, 1,000 so it wouldn't draw attention. They thought I'd never know. He showed me the bank statements, the transfer lines marked in red. Second, he continued, they forged my signature on at least 3 documents. This power of attorney, for example. He held the paper up. I never signed this. They took an old sample of my signature and copied it. That's a crime, I whispered. Exactly. Fraud and document forgery. He flipped through a few more pages. Third, they signed an agreement with a brokerage to sell this house. But there's a small problem. What is it? The house is still in my name, and I never authorized its sale. I began to understand. The brother everyone thought had been in a coma for a year had actually spent 6 months gathering evidence against his own family. There's a lot more, Augusta. A lot. He sat down beside me. They had planned a new life for a long time. Rebecca picked a college in another state. Dad was submitting job applications all over. They planned it carefully. I've always been the fool cleaning up their mess, I said, angry and hurt. Not anymore. Ethan took my hand. His fingers were warm, firm, real. I have a plan. If you agree, we'll make them pay a lesson they'll never forget. I looked at him, at the stack of papers scattered on the table, at the empty house around me. All the years I'd shouldered, sacrificed, living for others flashed before me. My mother's fake smile in the video, Rebecca's arrogance, Dad speaking about selling the house like I had nothing to do with it. What kind of plan? I asked. Ethan smiled wider. The kind of plan that will make them understand who really controls this place. He led me to the back room, the small office I rarely used. Inside, Ethan had turned it into a real operations center. 3 laptops were running, stacks of organized files, rows of labeled USB drives, and a pinboard covered in photos connected by colored string like in a crime investigation show. My God, Ethan, I exclaimed. You've turned into Sherlock Holmes? 6 months of pretending to be in a coma gave me plenty of time to plan, he replied, booting up a computer. Especially when you discover your own family is trying to steal everything, motivation comes naturally. He opened electronic folders, each named Lydia, Robert, Rebecca. Inside were numerous documents, screenshot messages, audio clips, and photos. How did you get all this? I asked. Patience and technology, he said, pointing to a tiny microcamera stuck on the wall. I installed these all over the house. Everyone thought I was a lifeless corpse, so they said everything right in front of me. He opened the folder for our mother and showed me WhatsApp messages. Ethan is still the same. The doctor says there's no hope. That's so sad, Lydia. What about his money? Nearly $2 million. Could be put to good use. Rebecca wants to study far away, but Mom doesn't have access. We're talking with a lawyer. A little paperwork, nothing that can't be fixed. I felt sick. My mother was talking about her son's money as if it were inheritance ready to be divided. And there's more, Ethan said, opening another file. This is between Dad and Rebecca. Dad, I found a nice apartment in Miami. Calm down, sweetheart. We need to handle your brother's situation first. But Dad said the lawyer can handle it. Yeah, it's almost done, just waiting for the right moment. Augusta's been attached to him lately. Poor thing, she suspects nothing. Lucky she's stupid. I closed my eyes, feeling real pain in my chest. They didn't just use me, they mocked me behind my back. I really am an idiot, I whispered. No, you're not stupid. You just trusted your family, and that should have been normal. Ethan opened another folder full of official papers. But worse is what they actually did. He showed me a series of transfer statements, small amounts siphoned from his account to strange accounts. This account belongs to Rebecca. This one is Dad's. This one is a joint account of the 2 of them. How much have they taken? $83,000. I collapsed back into the chair. $83,000 enough for me to live comfortably for 2 years. They thought I'd never know. Exactly. Because in their minds, I was just a dying, unresponsive state and I wouldn't bother anyone anymore. Then Ethan opened another audio file on his phone. This clip was recorded 2 weeks ago. They were in the living room. My mother's voice was clear. "Robert, the doctor says Ethan's condition is worsening." "Really?" my father asked. "No, but Augusta believes everything we say. If we start planting the idea that he's getting weaker, then when he actually dies, no one will suspect." "Lydia, you mean? I mean, sometimes nature needs a little help lower a dose. Switch a medication, that kind of thing happens all the time." I stopped the recording, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it. "They're planning to kill you," I whispered. "Not directly, but they're willing to let nature hurry up." Nausea rose into my throat. My family, the people who were supposed to love and protect Ethan, were talking about making him die sooner, just for money. "How did you record them?" I asked. "Phone, under the pillow." I learned to start recording just by pressing the volume up button, even with my eyes closed. He gave a bitter laugh. 6 months of practice? Anyone could become an expert. Ethan opened a folder named Legal Evidence. "This is the important part. I hired a private investigator." "But you were lying there?" "The internet, Augusta. I did everything online. Hired a digital investigation firm. I sent them all the recordings, screenshots, documents they verified, and found many more things." He showed me a professional report full of photos, documents, and a detailed active timeline of the family's suspicious behaviors. "One more thing." Ethan opened a drawer. "Remember Richard?" "Of course." Richard was Ethan's college friend, now a prosecutor. He came to visit me 3 months ago. Everyone thought he was wasting his time talking to a living corpse, but I blinked in Morse code to signal him. "You know Morse code?" "I learned it in the early months of the coma." "Plenty of time," he said sarcastically. Richard realized, came back several times, and Ethan handed all the information to him. Ethan took out a thick envelope stamped with the U.S. Attorney's Office seal. "They've opened a preliminary investigation. Once I signal, they'll act." I looked at him, astonished and admiring. For 6 months, while the family treated him as a burden, Ethan had quietly built a case against them. "What do you need me to do?" "First, you must understand, once we go down this path, there's no turning back. If we do this, they'll be arrested. There will be trials, sentences. This family will fall apart." I thought about all those years, how many times I endured humiliation, was looked down on, did everything for them. I thought of today's call, my mother's smiling face while abandoning me with a responsibility that wasn't mine. "They are the ones who destroyed this family first," I said. "We'll show them who they really are. Then it's time to act." He picked up his phone. "I'll call Richard. He'll initiate the process to freeze the accounts and lock down the assets." Then he paused, a mischievous gleam in his eye. "But before that, shall we call our beloved family and see? They'll be very surprised." At last, in hours, I laughed. Finally, after years of being belittled, I was about to see justice for them. "Do it," I said. For once in my life, I felt truly on my brother's side, no longer just his caregiver, but his ally in this story. Ethan dialed with a determination I'd never seen. On the other end of the line, "Richard, it's Ethan." The prosecutor's voice was stunned. "Ethan? Are you serious?" "It's a long story, but now is the time. Do everything we discussed." "You sure? Once I start, there's no turning back." Ethan looked at me, his eyes asking, "Are you backing out?" I nodded. He replied curtly, "I'm sure." "All right, I'll contact the judge right now. We're moving for emergency freezes today. Warrants are being prepared and could be executed as early as tomorrow morning." "Perfect." "Oh, Richard. What is it?" "They're at a resort in Palm Beach, Florida. I'll send you the exact coordinates." "Got it. Welcome back, Ethan." The call ended. Ethan turned to me. "Ready for the best part?" Before I could answer, he dialed another number. Lydia's name appeared on the screen. My heart tightened. In a few seconds, I'd be talking to the woman who had abandoned me in an empty house just hours earlier. The phone rang 3 times. "Hello, sweetheart," my mother said in her usual fake sweet tone. "How's your brother?" Ethan motioned for me to answer. He's doing great, Mom. That's wonderful. Is he eating? Are you giving him his medicine on time? Her casual tone made me feel sick. I don't have to give him any medicine, Mom. He's awake. What? What did you say? Ethan's in a coma. Ethan took the phone from my hand. Hi, Mom, he said clearly. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice trembling. Since when have you been awake? 6 months, Mom. 6 months of hearing you all plan how to steal my money and help me die faster. Sweetheart, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't know about the $83,000 you, Dad, and Rebecca withdrew from my account? Don't know about the house sale? Don't know about that talk you had about helping nature with my medication? Noise erupted on the other end. Ethan, you're confused. Comas can cause hallucinations. Confused? Ethan let out a cold laugh. Mom, I have everything: recordings, forged documents, illegal transfers. What recordings? You were in a coma. I was pretending. For 6 months. And guess what? I have a friend in the U.S. Attorney's office. Still listening, Mom? Ethan asked, feigning concern. Yes, I'm here. Good, because you need to hear this. Right now, every account belonging to you, Dad, and Rebecca is frozen. Your credit cards are canceled. Guy. And within a few hours, you'll be welcomed by federal agents. I heard her shouting at someone, probably Dad. Ethan, you can't do this. We're family. Family? His voice turned icy. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't abandon. Family doesn't plan murder. We didn't plan to kill anyone. I have the recording, Mom. You were the one who said to help nature with my medication. Want me to play it for you? Her breathing turned frantic. Ethan, please, sweetheart, let's talk. Don't involve the police. The police are already involved, Mom. They're probably arriving at your resort right now. As if on cue, noise erupted through the phone's stern voices, shouting, FBI, federal agents, please show your IDs. The phone fell, but the line stayed open. I heard my mother scream, there must be some mistake. We're innocent. Mrs. Lydia Whitman, you are under arrest for fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy to commit murder. Murder? That's ridiculous, my father's voice shouted in the background. Lydia, what's happening? Why are they here? Rebecca's voice cried out in panic. Mom, my cards aren't working. The hotel manager said everything's been frozen. Ethan ended the call and turned to me, his eyes shining. And that, dear sister, is how justice is served. I trembled, part rage, part relief, part a deep, thrilling satisfaction I hadn't known I could feel. They're really arrested? I asked. Yes, and they'll be in prison for a long time. Organized fraud, forgery of public documents, participation in a criminal scheme, and conspiracy to commit murder face multiple felony counts and substantial prison time. My knees went weak. 6 hours ago, I was just a 29-year-old woman abandoned by her family in an empty house. Now that same family was being arrested at a luxury resort in Florida they could never afford. Ethan, what do we do now? He came closer and took my hand. Now, little sister, we live for real, no more being treated like trash, no more manipulation, no more pretending we're okay when we're not. What about the house? It's yours. It's always been yours, but if you want, it can be ours. I looked around the room full of neatly arranged folders, the result of 6 months of my brother's silent revenge plan. How did you stand it? 6 months of pretending, hearing them say those things? Because I thought about this moment, Ethan replied. The moment they'd realized they underestimated the wrong person. His phone rang. It was Richard. Mission accomplished, the prosecutor's voice said. All 3 have been arrested. They're being transported to Miami headquarters, then to the state detention center. All accounts have been frozen. The stolen money is being recovered. And Ethan, the press already knows this story's going to make waves. Ethan smiled. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. After hanging up, he looked at me seriously. Augusta, You need to understand something. From now on, it's going to get tough. They'll pretend to be victims, say, we're the villains. They'll lie, twist the story. I know, I said, surprised at how firm my voice sounded. But I don't care anymore. I'm done being the obedient, patient daughter. Ethan looked at me with pride. Then welcome to the real family. Sister, the family we choose, not the one we're born into. The next 3 days were a whirlwind. Ethan's story spread everywhere. Man pretends to be in a coma to expose his corrupt family. That headline was on every newspaper. Reporters called nonstop. Neighbors gathered outside just to check in. Relatives who hadn't contacted us in years suddenly sent messages of sympathy. It's funny how everyone becomes your friend once you're in the news, I said, showing Ethan my phone full of messages. Or, when they know you've got 2 million in your account, he replied, flipping through a newspaper. Look, the true meaning of family. If they only knew the truth. We were drinking coffee when the landline rang. Normally, we wouldn't answer, but this time Ethan glanced at the caller ID and gestured. It's the police station. I picked up, my heart pounding. Hello? This is Detective Henry Sullivan. I'd like to speak with Mr. Ethan Whitman. Ethan took the phone. This is him. Sir, your parents and sister have been transferred to Miami PD headquarters. They're requesting to speak with you. They can request whatever they want. I don't want to talk to any of them. But your mother says she has important information regarding your health. Detective, Ethan interrupted, his voice firm. With all due respect, anything they say is a lie. They spent a year planning how to rob a man in a coma. I won't believe a single word. I understand. But about bail, they're trying to raise money. With what money? Ethan laughed. All their accounts are frozen. The house they sold illegally has been seized. They don't have a single legal dollar left. After hanging up, he fell silent for a moment. They'll try everything to get out. Do you think they can? No, not with this evidence. But they'll play dirty. Just as he predicted, the counterattack began the next day. First came the social media posts, fake accounts claiming Ethan was lying, that he had never been in a coma, that it was all for attention. Then came whispers from people we knew. The once friendly neighbor began muttering, "Poor Lydia. Sacrificed her whole life for her children, and this is how they repay her." I swallowed my anger and kept walking, but Ethan stopped. "Do you know the whole story, ma'am?" he asked politely. "I just know you two had your own parents arrested," she said with a sneer. "Do you know they took $83,000 from a man in a coma? That's just an accusation. And do you know they discussed switching my medication so I'd die faster?" She went silent. "Then maybe you should know the full story before judging," Ethan said, then took my arm and we walked on. But the real storm hit on Friday. A lawyer walked into the house, expensive suit, leather briefcase, introducing himself as the Whitman family's legal representative. "Good afternoon. I'm here to propose a settlement," he said, sitting down as if he owned the place. "What kind of settlement?" I asked. "My clients are willing to return all funds withdrawn from Mr. Ethan's account in exchange for you two dropping the charges." Ethan leaned back, staring at the man coldly. "If they're innocent, why do they need a deal? We all know family matters can be easily misunderstood. Perhaps the recordings aren't as clear as you think. Maybe, Mr. Ethan, due to your brain injury, your memory isn't entirely reliable." They were trying to make Ethan look insane. "Sir," Ethan said, calmly, "would you like to hear those recordings again?" "No need. We just want to resolve this peacefully." "Peacefully?" Ethan repeated, his tone dripping with irony. "Like when they discussed changing my medication so I'd die faster." The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "There's a big difference between desperate words and actual actions, sir." "Indeed," Ethan replied. "The difference is they didn't know I heard every word." "Let's get to the point." The lawyer changed tactics. "My clients are willing to pay $200,000 to each of you to drop the case. $200,000, the amount I'd have to work 5 years to earn." I repeated softly, "$200,000. Ethan looked at me. For a moment I thought he might agree. But then he said, "Tell them they don't have $200,000. Every penny they have is stolen. And tell them we'd rather see them rot in prison than take one filthy cent." The lawyer sighed, packed his papers into his briefcase, and stood up. "You'll regret this. My clients have friends, connections. Life could become very difficult for you too. More difficult than being robbed by our own family?" I asked firmly. "More difficult than being abandoned in an empty house? More difficult than discovering our parents once planned to kill their son?" He looked at me with contempt. "You don't understand the consequences." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I replied. "That no one is above the law no matter how many connections they have." After he left, Ethan hugged me. "You make me proud," he said. "You're not the same woman who walked into this house a week ago." He was right. The woman I'd been a week ago swallowed every humiliation, accepted being trampled on. The woman I was now knew her worth. "They'll keep trying to pressure us," Ethan said. "I know, but I don't care anymore." And it was true. I stood on the right side, the side of justice, of truth. That was worth more than any amount of money or fake sympathy. 6 months later, I was cooking lunch in our kitchen when I heard Ethan come home. He was back at work now, a cybersecurity consultant, helping people who had been deceived by their own families, just like we once were. "How was your session today?" I asked. "Rough," he said, sitting at the table. "A 70-year-old woman just found out her son's been embezzling her pension for 3 years. I shook my head. Our story had opened the door for others to share their pain. Every month, Ethan took on at least 5 new cases, people betrayed and exploited by their own families. "Were you able to help her?" "We'll try. Richard's already on it. The evidence is solid." Our lives were steady now. Ethan had fully recovered from the accident and found his purpose helping victims of financial abuse within families. I'd quit my job at the clinic and started working with him, handling administration and intake for new clients. The house that once felt empty was now a real home. We turned the office into a workspace, my parents' old room into a library, and Rebecca's into an archive for case files. "There's mail from the prison," Ethan said, holding up an envelope. It was from my mother, the 5th letter in 6 months. The first 4 had followed a pattern. First, guilt. "How can you sleep while your mother's in prison?" Then manipulation. "I'm sick and need treatment." Then anger. "You'll both pay for this." And finally, fake remorse. "I know I was wrong, but let's talk as a family. Are you going to read it?" I asked. "No." He tossed it into the trash. She lost the right to talk to me the moment she chose to betray me. I understood. In the beginning, I still felt a pang of guilt thinking about them in prison. After all, they were still my parents and sister. But Ethan helped me see that guilt is a manipulator's favorite weapon. "They make you feel guilty just for reacting to their wrongdoing," he told me. The trial had taken place 2 months earlier. It went quickly because the evidence was irrefutable. My father was sentenced to 8 years for organized fraud and document forgery. My mother got 9 years for the same crimes, plus conspiracy to commit murder. Rebecca, being younger and less involved, received 5 years. Their defense lawyer tried everything. He claimed Ethan had psychological issues, questioned the validity of the recordings, even argued it was all a media stunt. But the evidence was too strong to deny. The hardest moment was when my mother looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Augusta, are you really going to let your own mother rot in prison?" I felt the weight of a lifetime pressing on my shoulders, all those years of being the obedient child, never arguing, always yielding. For a brief moment, I almost wanted to stand up and say I forgave everything. But then I looked at Ethan, saw Richard the prosecutor organizing the evidence, and the judge preparing to deliver a fair sentence. I said firmly, "Mom, the one who put you in prison isn't me, it's your own choices." That was the first time in my life I truly faced my mother, and the first time I felt free. I learned how to say no. I learned to value my own time and energy, and I learned that family isn't about shared blood, but genuine care. Ethan and I grew closer than ever. We were partners, housemates, and above all, true friends. "You know what's funny?" Ethan interrupted my thoughts. "What?" "I got a text from our cousin Lindsay, the one who hasn't spoken to us in 5 years. "What does she want?" She said she always felt something was off about our parents, that now she understands why I was different, and she wants to reconnect. I laughed out loud. Lindsay used to be Ethan's harshest critic, always calling him arrogant and self-righteous. So, what did you tell her? I told her she's very perceptive and she should stay that way by continuing to stay away from fake people like us. Ethan, I scolded playfully, though I was still laughing. Now everyone wants to be friends when they know I have money, he said with a wry smile. It's fascinating how people reveal their true selves when there's something to gain. He was right. In recent months, plenty of people had suddenly reappeared. Old classmates from 15 years ago, distant relatives, even an ex who suddenly felt nostalgic. But there were also genuinely good people, former colleagues, kind neighbors, and Richard, who had become a close friend. You know, I said as I set the table, I realized it's easier to spot bad people once you stop trying to please everyone. What do you mean? I used to be so afraid of being abandoned that I tolerated disrespect, ingratitude, manipulation. Now that I know I'm strong enough to stand alone, it's easier to see who's real. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. It's like cleaning out a house. Sometimes you have to throw out the rotten things before you can see what's truly valuable. The doorbell rang. It was Mrs. Collins, our 80-year-old neighbor who'd moved in 2 weeks earlier. My dear ones, I just baked carrot cake and thought of you, so I brought some over. A simple, genuine gesture and exactly the kind I'd learned to cherish. Mrs. Collins knew nothing about our story, and she didn't care about money. She just enjoyed company and conversation. Of course, Mrs. Collins. Have lunch with us. With pleasure. As I set another place at the table, I realized how much my life had changed. A year ago, I lived in a toxic family, treated like a servant. Today, I had a real home, meaningful, work, and relationships built on mutual respect. I heard people in the neighborhood talking, Mrs. Collins said as she sat down. Something about you two having your family arrested? Ethan and I exchanged glances. That question still came up sometimes. It's a long story, I said. But to put it simply, we discovered our family was deceiving us, so we chose justice. Oh, she nodded. Sometimes that's the only way. If family doesn't respect you, then they're not really family. That's when I truly understood what had happened. We hadn't lost our family when they were arrested. We'd lost them long before when they decided to treat us like tools, like disposable things. What we gained was far more valuable. The chance to build genuine relationships based on love and respect. After lunch, when Mrs. Collins went home, Ethan and I sat back at the table, sipping coffee and sorting through new case files. I've always wanted to ask you something, I said. Do you ever regret everything we did? Ethan paused, looked at me seriously. No, not once, not even for a second. He smiled. What about you? Neither do I. It was the best decision of my life. Even knowing they'll be in prison for years, especially because of that. They chose that path. Now they're just facing the consequences. Ethan turned back to the paperwork, and I kept thinking. A year ago, if someone had told me I'd be the one to send my parents to prison, I'd have said it was impossible. But now I understood it wasn't just possible, it was necessary. Sometimes, you have to be alone for a while. Be seen as the villain by people who know nothing about the truth. But it allows you to look in the mirror and realize you're still yourself. And I love the person I see in that mirror. A call came in. Another call, someone new seeking help to escape a toxic family. Whitman and Whitman office. Hello, I answered, glancing at Ethan, who smiled at the name we'd chosen together for our firm. How can we help you? Because that's what we do now. Help others find freedom just like we found ourselves. Maybe the hardest part isn't letting go of the people who hurt you, but accepting that sometimes, family is the first place you have to learn to say no. Ethan and I didn't choose revenge. We chose truth, justice, and, most importantly, ourselves. I once thought family love meant unconditional tolerance, but real love only exists when there's respect. If a relationship forces you to lose your peace and self-worth, then maybe it's time to walk away to save yourself. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story made you think of something, a boundary you once had to set, or a difficult decision you faced, share it in the comments. Maybe your story can help someone else find the courage to stand up. And if you'd like to keep listening, reflecting, and healing with me through more real-life stories, don't go anywhere. We still have so much to learn together about trust, forgiveness, and the power of choosing the right side, the side of truth and freedom.